Human beings mostly believe we progress from having dark skin to light through evolution due to different conditions, but many of us contend that is not the case. Although microevolution is programmed into DNA to accommodate environmental changes, it's never been shown that species can jump to a more complex form, which was admitted by Darwin from the start. Scientific developments now allow us to identify the specific changes occurring to DNA through the Homo sapien story, by mapping when new segments of DNA appear, which cause distinct physical differences from those prior. The new group is given a new letter, which has allowed DNA changes to be traced. The groups are called haplogroups, which identify a person's lineage, showing separate male and female ancestry. For females in the mitochondria of their cells, starting with mitochondrial L, and for males in their Y sex chromosomes inside the nucleus, which starts at A. Males also have mitochondrial DNA, but it only gets passed down through the mother to both. To explain how DNA of African males changed from A to E is complex, but I contend the path is traceable and appears not to have been random. I cover this period in detail in Blood Groups and Races, dealing with the time span from the sudden appearance of Homo sapiens in Africa to when they left and joined the rest of the beings populating the world. In this presentation, I will attempt to condense the DNA story, demonstrating links between haplogroups, events, and evidence in eras which all happened before becoming Y haplogroup E, which was shared by modern Africans, pharaohs, and the first Caucasoids. It's estimated that the first Homo sapiens appeared about 250,000 years ago in southern Africa, with mitochondrial haplogroup L and Y haplogroup A, said to have been the ancient San or Khoi people. But according to mythology of the modern San people, they were not the original Africans, who they say came from further north. During this time, Neanderthals and Denisovans roamed the European continent, which I propose was not connected by land to Africa at that time. It seems they were well suited to the environments too, and they dominated the west and east respectively of what would become the European continent, unchecked until new inhabitants appeared. This next major change probably occurred somewhere around 70 to 50,000 years ago. According to mythology, when Y haplogroup A became B, and then C, who subsequently left Africa, while A and B did not. If not by evolution, then how? Evidence of beings from elsewhere is found on both sides of northwest Africa, and they could have contributed DNA when they mixed with earlier Africans. The Dogon tribe in northwest Africa have maintained stories of hermaphrodite amphibian beings they call the Nomos, who came out of the sea and gave them advanced knowledge of the Sirius star system. They have recorded the oldest religion in the world through their oral traditions, which tells of when humans became single-sexed and was apparently focused on goddess worship initially, until later reversed by patriarchal warring invaders. More about the fascinating history of the Dogons can be found through Shannon Dory's research and Capricorn Radio. I believe that Dogon mythology says that they were visited by the Nomos about 60,000 years ago, and would fit with when the first Capoid race became Congoid, originally both classified as Negroid. The original mitochondrial L had developed as subgroups across Africa, possibly for 200,000 years, but from some outside influence, mitochondrial M appeared at the Horn and was eventually spread to most areas. Both Y haplogroup A and B can have mitochondrial M, and subgroups can vary greatly. For instance, Zulu and Pygmies can both have Y haplogroup BM, but are different subgroups of BM 109 and BM112 respectively. Soon after that, Y haplogroup C with mitochondrial N appeared in northeast Africa, and these became the Australoid Aboriginal people who covered much of the world, eventually arriving in Australia, we are told some 60 to 40,000 years ago, and according to their mythology. We are told that mitochondrial L3 was the precursor to both mitochondrial M and N. The catalyst, it seems, was the introduction of male DNA called Y haplogroup T at the Horn of Africa, which in my opinion also changed male B to C. There is no logical explanation for the appearance of Y haplogroup T, which is also called KM70, who was out of context and time. They did not evolve in Africa, making them aliens. But from where? As Y haplogroup KM70, aka T, should not appear until after the era of FGHIJ. Is this showing another reset, occurring from some prior time? Evidence exists of cataclysms, natural disasters, and invaders throughout this area. As we can see, BT and CT are grouped on the charts, and yet C goes off by itself to later group with F. More of that later. So these early A and B male hunter-gatherers populated Africa, while C left with mitochondrial N females and traversed the rest of the world for the following 50,000 years with O-positive blood group and dark skin, even as far as Australia and South America. These are the Australoid and covered much of the planet for thousands of years. As stated, they were not the only hominids roaming the continent at that stage. It seems that Y haplogroup C didn't come in contact with Neanderthals, as they have none of their DNA. They did, however, breed with some Denisovans throughout Asia and Siberia, who died out only 30,000 years ago, and took some of their DNA to Australia. Modern Aboriginal people can have up to 4% Denisovan DNA. When natural climate changes caused the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, and seawater rose hundreds of feet, it isolated the Aboriginals cut off in Australia, still Y haplogroup C with mitochondrial N, until the next relatively recent invasions by seafarers. Their isolation has allowed us to see that DNA doesn't just keep evolving into new types without intervention of some kind. This is what initially spurred me on to investigate and trace the passage of the human story. Next era, sometime since 50,000 BCE, haplogroup D appeared in regions that would become Japan and Tibet. Once again, it looks like they came in from the sea, and Japanese creation mythology speaks of water dragons. The mothers of the new hybrids were daughters of Y haplogroup Cs, who had also absorbed portions of Denisovan DNA before they disappeared. These first Y haplogroup D, the Ainu people, had dark skin, O blood, and tolerance for cold, from the special Denisovan gene for high altitudes. But they were not a Mongoloid race yet. It appears to me that an influx of people with hooded eyes came in later, from the mainland, and mixed into most Japanese over time. Initially, the Ainu people remained mainly in the northern, colder islands, apparently a safer region not favoured by the new invaders, who we see were actually Y haplogroup K2D, also called Y haplogroup O, the modern Chinese. The Mongols. Then back in Africa, male haplogroup E emerges as the dominant new haplogroup, but without being associated with D, who stayed in Japan and Tibet. The story gets more and more fascinating. Haplogroup evidence shows changes along the fertile regions of northeast Africa, of new female mothers, not of the prior mitochondrial L, M or N types. She was called mitochondrial EM78 group, but individually are called mitochondrial EV. These new females appeared in ancient Put along the Nile River, but soon we see two strains diverge from there, mitochondrial EV12 and EV32, in Kush and Ethiopia respectively. DNA specialists say that between Y haplogroup D and E, there was an unexplained addition of a whole segment of DNA called the FOXP2 gene, which simply can't happen through mutation. So I propose this supports the contention that it could only happen through mammalian intervention. Researcher Stan Dyer showed evidence of prior habitation of Arabia, which he claims was an Atlantean colony, where the god Poseidon took human wives until a wipeout event occurred. I can no longer find his video, but the information and evidence was compelling that this area was inhabited by some earlier amphibious occupants, probably until a meteorite crashed in the Indian Ocean and covered the southern part of the Middle East with seafloor crust called ophiolite. I contend the female offspring of those unions shared Poseidon's DNA, possibly explaining also the appearance of Rh-negative blood. DNA researchers also say that while the mitochondrial DNA somewhat resembles primates, the Y chromosome does not, which correlates with these stories. In this area of the Middle East, modern researchers have identified strange stone artefacts strewn all over the land, with no known function or makers, but apparently they are also known as seals of Poseidon, which still remained when these photos were taken, but who knows what survived the rampant destruction from the recent bombings. Interestingly, the shape has also been left in crop circles and sculptures, linking their presence to the god Enki of Sumerian mythology, possibly descendant of Poseidon and Zeus. Some hybrid females with mitochondrial EV then bred with the endemic human CT males, still in Africa, resulting in Y haplogroup E natives, as D already existed on the other side of the world with mitochondrial N. We skipped to E. When these new E males bred with native women who had mitochondrial L, M or N, they remained Y haplogroup E with dark skin. They remained congoids. But I contend that the caucasoids are the descendants of the EV hybrids who populated Europe. When the new Y haplogroup E spread north and south from Kush, they had mitochondrial EV12 or 22, respectively, which seems to fit with the mythology of the two strains of Egyptian goddesses, Demeter and Despoina. Then, when Y haplogroup E native males bred with that new subgroup of women, we saw the emergence of Y haplogroup EV13 sons with mitochondrial EV13, who went up to Greece and spread over southern ancient Europe. Seems to me these would have been the paler-skinned Minoans, who civilized old Europe, with advanced knowledge of agriculture and goddess culture, along with physical remnants of the first appearance of grains and pottery, consistent with the mythological Demeter Isis, around 6,000 years ago, spreading from the Fertile Crescent down to Egypt before then going up to Greece and over old Europe. This was a peaceful time, recorded in folklore, but it was not to last. See the work of Maria Gimbutas, who recorded folklore from old Europe. So I propose that while E males stayed black in Africa, the E Caucasoid line changed to white due to their mothers. And more changes occurred in the matriarchal line that we'll discuss